So I'm curious, and over the years, how has like Google Ads evolved, and what's it look like in your opinion going forward, especially as you know uh, the chat GPTs of the world and other things start to jump in there. And I know that Google's pursuing their own, versions of that as well. But I'm just curious to just hear a little bit of the evolution and where you see it going.
Yeah, so really Google, it used to be a bit of the wild, wild west in terms of you could, if you really knew what you're doing, you could make just tremendous amounts of money because there was lower competition. If you could, corner the market on particular keywords, particular service, you could own the market for a while.
Hmm.
And over time, it's definitely matured in that Google is the first place most advertisers go in the digital area to start advertising. So it's no longer the Wild West. There is it's a very mature platform with a lot of advertisers, but it can still be a very effective platform because it is the place that most of us go to for answers to our problems, for finding solutions. If we need a service, a product, often Google is the first place you go. And so inherently, if you're a business trying to sell things or provide services, provide information, Google is where you can reach the most people that you know are looking for what you sell. Now, like you mentioned, with things like ChatGPT, this is the first time I say in a long time that Google really has a legitimate threat to
Hmm.
their monopoly on how people find information online,
Yeah.
and that is, more and more people are going to things like ChatGPT and starting their searches and ending their searches often there.
Hmm.
From a market share perspective, those tools still have right now a very low market share. I think
Sure.
the last study I saw relative to ChatGPT was that it might have maybe a 5% share of search traffic,
Okay.
which is low obviously, but that was also up from I think like 1% earlier in last year. And so
Okay.
from a just a trajectory standpoint, that is a very 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 rapid growth.
Yeah.
Um, I think looking to the future, I think that early adopters, people who are more tech savvy, more on top of new things, will be leveraging a lot of tools beyond Google, like ChatGPT, like Perplexity, things like that. And Google's definitely going to lose some market share there. I think in the short term, Google's probably not going to lose a lot of market share to just the average consumer who doesn't really have time to worry about those things and who's just kind of
Yeah.
already bought in. Google is where I go. That's where I do my searches. And so I
Yeah.
think it's going to take a while to change habits for just the
Yeah.
average consumer. But over time, if Google is not able to, really change how it operates and compete better with things like ChatGPT, then they will get on a slippery slope,
Got it.
and at some point they will lose the monopoly that they essentially have at this point.
Yeah. Very interesting. I wonder, do you think that creates some opportunities though on Google in terms of there are a lot of people who are going to be over and testing and playing in these other areas? So it opens up maybe more competitive rates in Google, or do you think we'd see that impact at all?
That's a great question. I don't think we'll see most advertisers really move budget away from Google to a significant extent until they see diminishing returns on Google.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think they'll allocate, maybe additional budget for testing other platforms. But if they think it's working well on Google, I don't see them pulling it away. I,
Got it.
I do, however, see opportunities in that Google is going through a significant change right now where they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we deal with these things? Obviously, the introduction of AI overviews into the search engine result pages is probably the biggest consumer facing change they've made in a long time. Where now you
Mhm.
go on Google, you search for something, and many times Google's trying to answer that question right away. And
Yeah.
then sure they have links that source you to where they're pulling that information from, but they're really
Hmm.
trying to be the source right on that search engine results page. And so a big opportunity for advertisers is going to be how is Google going to look to monetize that? Because they
Right.
have announced they're going to bring ads to that, but exactly how that's going to work, what that's going to look like, is still very nebulous at this point.
Mm.
And so that's something we're really very closely monitoring. Is all right. How are we going to be able to leverage the AI overview placement and things like that on behalf of
Yeah.
our advertisers and
Hmm.
making sure that
I
we're
would say as a
getting in front of
consumer,
people. Yeah.
when Google introduced the Gemini snippet at the top of your search result,
Yeah.
I went back and started using Google more again.
Yeah.
I use ChatGPT daily, but I find myself just falling back into old habits. Because if I'm looking for something, say, oh, what's the address of this location? Google.
Exactly.
I haven't
Yeah.
adjusted my habits yet But new habits have formed with ChatGPT, because my new habits with ChatGPT are generate me something new, and
Mhm.
that's where I go. So it'll be interesting to see how it all evolves, and if I'm an exception or I'm part of the more mass, how everybody is kind of adopting to these things.
I and I think there's that component too of, I'm gonna put you in this category, Art, and will it be an old versus young? Like, in other words, kinda like, I think about our kids today, it's like YouTube and all that. It's like, forget streaming elsewhere. It's gonna be really interesting to see how people come in trained in that sort of, fashion for information.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. My son, he used to have this, always would say, ask Siri. Like if he had any questions,
No,
I'm
it
like,
says ask
I'm not
ChatGPT.
sure. Ask Siri. He's now changed it. He doesn't say ask Siri anymore. He's like, I don't like Siri. The answers are not as good. Ask ChatGPT. And now he calls it Chad. He's like, ask Chad.
Ask Chad, yeah. That's awesome.